Time.
Oh,
If Facebook likes it, if we are on time, and we were not today. So, oh well. As far as today's subject, hello everybody. Cecily Biggins here with my husband Bill Bourbon, and we'll be talking about learning and the education system, and to truly go over its history of where we've come from, where we're heading, and all the positive and negative effects of learning and who's responsible for what. Because if you look out through history, starting with the Egyptians, clearly civilization has learned cuneiform and writing and the creation of the pyramids and having very much one on one tutelage, or I can definitely say a much smaller class size because only rich people were allowed to be that kind of educated. And once you get past that, not much changes up through the Middle Ages. Then you still mostly have the richer people educating their children. And then you go up to semi organized education, like the older boarding school model, or a lot of regular, like crafts, like craftsman learning, where you were an intern of sorts, you learned the skill, you made money, you moved on. And then if you hurry it up to, I'd say at least Thomas Jefferson, he was the one that really pushed for more public funding of schools and whatnot, where you had the one room schoolhouse, the one teacher, and it could be like 12 kids. Most people didn't get past a third grade education back then. If you went higher than that, you usually became a teacher yourself, even temporarily, just because it was quick, easy, you made money, and you were paid through the parents all getting together and saying, "Here's what we can afford. Will you do it?" And
there's a
then a
lot.
lot.
Well, there's a lot of historical information. If you're fans of Little House on the Prairie, when you see some of those episodes involving the schoolhouse, you can actually see what was. I think that's a more accurate depiction in our media today.
Yeah, where a lot of, even though you had a teacher per se in your formative years, people still moved on back then. If you wanted to learn something, you had to be self motivated. Except usually it was the richer people, but at the same time, after the creation of the Gutenberg press and the create or the physical, because the Bible was around clearly, and it was the number one produced book in history, even at that point. But it was handwritten and decorated by monks. So, with the creation of the printing press, books and writings of every kind were more readily available. So, there was something of a trickle down effect. And then, if you go up to, I said, Thomas Jefferson, he was a very well read person. If you had a will, there was a way. You may not necessarily get rich off it based on your social standing or economic standing, but if you wanted to know something, it was easier at that point to find out versus, you know, it wasn't quite to the point where they had Pony Express, but it was at least in the works because it was created by uh, Benjamin Franklin, the mail system, and
Mhm.
people's need of writing, use of writing and or reading. And math, that was more of a parent child thing because you had to be able to count eggs and how much money you had, just everyday living. So, other than adding and subtracting and maybe some multiplication with minimal division, that's what the average person needed. You had no crop yield. Uh, I mean, accounting was around at that point,
Right.
at least as far as a little bit before the Gutenberg press, there was accounting, so people were knowledgeable. Except it was still like that apprenticeship style learning mostly. And it was still on the village level where people had like the formal style of education that we have nowadays. So then after Jefferson pushed for public schools, you go up to Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln did not go to a public school or have formal education for any consistent amount of time until he went to lawyer college. So essentially, he was homeschooled, and he was notorious for borrowing books from every single neighbor that he could, just to read more, to know more, and just to improve himself. It was at the job he had right before law school. Was he was a clerk in a shop for somebody else. So he knew he wanted to go somewhere, be something, always trying. So he pushed himself. Look what happened. And he was also one of the original creators of the Republican Party. Because at the time, for people who don't know your history, the Democrats were the creation at that same time period of the Democrat, like the KKK and the Democrat Party. Go check your history on that one, folks. And schools were a little bit more common, like I said, with the start of Thomas Jefferson, but they weren't really prevalent. They were more of an East Coast thing. America was still being settled in the West. I mean, obviously, you're on the East Coast, you'd be more book learned, but they still had mostly apprenticeships for like day labor jobs. And if you got lucky and you were born to the right family, more likely to have money. But they were making more successful people because education was around. Like they're now they say that the chance of making more millionaires, yeah, it was starting to go up. But I don't know if they necessarily had millionaires based on exchange rates and all the stuff of the era. So then you move up to what's the next president that really pushed for education? I think Teddy Roosevelt probably was the next big push as far as making sure funds were available. The IRS had been made at this point because without the taxation through the IRS, funding would not be so readily available to schools or to pay things. And this is also when unions started to affect unskilled, uneducated labor. And that's where you also had the Industrial Revolution, which also affected education. It's not just about knowing how to read and write. It's also like, did you have a skill that was worth paying for? Were you a weaver? Were you a shoemaker? Were you a wheel maker? Anything. What were you? What were your skills other than, podunk farmer? Which was very, very common. And you move up after that. I said mostly the biggest changes in history were to the Industrial Revolution and just exploding with the Carnegies, Ford, creation of the car, and people needed to be more educated to do those jobs, like for engineering.
And that's when standards were really established, because in order to fill these positions, they needed capable people who were, who could read, who could write, who could do
basic algebra, calculus, understanding PSI so they don't explode something.
I mean, the early assembly lines weren't as complicated as some of the manufacturing things that you see now, but
no, but you still needed. One of my favorite quotes ever from Henry Ford. He hired some engineer to go fix a problem he had with his production line. The guy does this,
right.
He does that. He's there like 20, 30 minutes. And he gives him the bill, and he's outraged by the bill. It's like, you're only here 20 minutes. Why are you charging me this? It's like, you're not paying me for how long I'm here. You're paying me to tinker with things so I know what's wrong and to fix them. You're paying me for that knowledge. It's like, okay. And that's what became more prevalent, even though at the same time in history, especially with Carnegie, and using the unskilled labor to their advantage, he put a lot of money back in, like with his charities, his alleged charities. He was the one who's known for saying that basically public schools were only used to create a more uniform workforce. Like they wanted programmable robotic people for their assembly lines. And that's how they started to give to charity. And it was public schools and how they were shaping America. Now, is this morally reprehensible? Education's education. Each individual has to figure that one out.
Well, the argument can be made that education needs to keep up with the current demands of the economy, the workforce, and what's going on today as things progress. and things are going to progress.
Well, they
Yeah.
also, even though we still do have a very entrepreneurial spirit in America, making people into robots really limits any new development. There's a lot
Right.
less of it by comparison. I mean, we still have a lot of it, but if people are taught to shut up, sit down, do as you're told, be a robot, you know, even the person, it was that lady who made some kind of weird mop, those don't happen as much or not as often.
No.
Like, no one's trying to make anything new, no one's trying to be inspired. And I really don't think, especially the way the college system is set up, they're not meeting the demand of what we need to keep up with any country. Were we like 50th in math scores, was it? We're really low in the list.
I don't have those. I don't have those statistics in front of me, but if somebody can bring that to my attention, please do.
Oh, I know that they're out there. Probably pull them up. But yeah, let's see, USA math score rankings.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what this is myself. Being a student of mathematics myself.
Uh-huh. Just give
Just
me
in case
some
everybody's
number.
wondering, I'm a former math team captain. I've competed on that high academic level. I'm proud of it.
Well,
It's gotten me nowhere in my current job, so
of course. It says on a scale from 1 to 1,000 on mathematics, the U.S. is little over 450.
Ugh. Out of how many?
1,000.
Oh
And
boy.
they're about 500 for reading level. And science, they're about the same, 500.
I know because I know coworkers. I know being out here as a truck driver for as long as I have, I know people who cannot necessarily read a road sign. So you know,
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder how they pass their CDL test. I guess they get past it and then I don't know.
Yeah. Well, through the creation of public school and these rather rich millionaires who very sophisticatedly used the Industrial Revolution to their greatest financial gain,
Yeah.
it truly did. By having so many people in schools, per se, there's less, at least as far as I find, that there's less personal responsibility. It's like they always want the teacher to just feed you information while it takes away the personal responsibility of just learning it yourself.
In other words, being told what to think, not how to think.
Yes.
That brings a bigger point to why aren't we teaching critical thinking skills in our classrooms anymore?
I had a class called critical thinking because they didn't have it in high schools.
Yeah.
That tech college.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, they still do have like private Catholic schools, which were very prominent during the Renaissance and up to modern age. They still have private schools. They still have, I mean, there are homeschoolers. Clearly, after the pandemic, there. I think homeschooling, according to some stats I saw, doubled. But that was pandemic related, so I'm not sure how good their numbers were.
I don't blame somebody for wanting to bring their children to homeschool. I'm very much questioning the safety of public schools in this country anymore anyway, and I've been questioning it since the 90s. And I grew up, where I grew up, I didn't necessarily feel safe in the school district that I was in. And that's saying a lot. But and people no, I have heard different opinions from over there. It's either gotten better in some cases or gotten worse in other cases.
Yeah, all I have is references. I did substitute teach for a little while, and my mother, all her horror stories from when she was a teacher back in the early 70s. Like all the gangs using craft supplies as weapons, trying to carve their initials into somebody's arm. Like,
Yeah,
you don't need a gun to.
this isn't just the school's fault. This is also the upbringing of the kids is the responsibility of the parents. That's their fault for
like
stuff like
their
that.
fault, and it's like almost like the kid's individual fault in a way. It's like if you're not good at something or driving around with Lyft and whatnot. One night I picked up a nurse or a CNA, whatever she was, from a hospital. She was going home, and normally you don't hear a lot about homeschooling from the African American community. At least I never did. They're always a minority, whatever group we were in. But her son, he always went to public school for most of his life, and he would be physically ill from his environment between bullying and whatever else. And he was going to the nurse constantly. And then COVID hit, and everyone was forced to homeschool. I think he was like 13, 14 years old, old enough to take care of himself. And he never got into trouble. He's one of those computer game nerd type of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And she trusts him to stay home alone and does his work. And she's like, my child will never, ever go back to that school ever again. Whereas the people are willing to stand up and say, I have a big, big problem versus the ones that don't have any real logical problem.
Well, this is also the school choice supporters. That's part of their argument as well. And I personally am a supporter of school choice. If you're not being served in your current district and you can go elsewhere, then yeah, especially. And I kind of take the side of this, the special needs kids, your autistic kids and stuff like that, and your gifted kids, because I think that they really need a little bit more specialized care, knowledge, whatever, in
For
dealing with.
most schools, I mean, obviously it does vary. From the time I was at least in White Settlement, that's one of the easiest ones to actually cater to.
Yeah.
Like when they have learning, they're not learning like physics, they're not learning like hard stuff. It's not like English is a second language. No, they're learning things like what's your name, what's your address, where does your mom work, normal everyday stuff.
Stuff parents should be telling their children anyway,
They're too busy at work, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just people don't take individual responsibility for themselves. I mean, other than certain, there are people in the homeschooling community who do want their kids only to be like doctors, lawyers, whatever else, and they really push them hard academically. They're the
Right.
only ones I can honestly say who have that spirit like Abe Lincoln, where it's like, I'm learning and you can't stop me. And even with today's access to the internet,
That's a lot of inspiration right there, because I don't think enough is being fostered to bring that out in most of these kids. I think a lot of
I
these
know
kids,
it's not being fostered. That's straight up. It is not.
no, a lot of these kids in public school these days, and I'm going to guess a large majority of them, say about 75% of them, really don't have any direction or purpose or inspiration in their lives. And I don't necessarily think it falls upon the teachers or the education system to do that. What these kids are learning they're learning at home. And if your parents are losers, then they might inspire their own kids to be losers. And I hate that.
I don't know what
I
that's
run into adults all the time who've had so much potential. And I'm a truck driver because I see this a lot. A lot of people who just gave up. This was a last resort choice.
not always. Like I did know that one psychology major he got out of school, got the job that he wanted, kind of,
Mhm.
working with mentally disturbed and stuff. But he ended up leaving it because he got tired of talking to rapists and pervs.
Well, that's a whole other matter. If you get into something and you don't like it, well, I thought I was going to be okay in the medical field. Well, I didn't really like it. So,
I didn't like the bureaucracy.
yeah. I really didn't like dealing with with certain people.
Well, it's the bureaucracy and how hard they try to hit you over the head with it.
Yeah, well, that wasn't really the problem for me. My problem was on the ground level on that one. It was actually dealing with people who were expecting miracles, and we're only working with what we already know, you know.
Hmm. And then probably we should mention, just to be fair and complete on the subject, because the education system is broken beyond broken between the teachers' unions and not having enough school choice, and they're just pumping our tax dollars into questionable endeavors. The teachers who are leaving the industry because they just can't take it anymore. Most of the teachers are good people.
No, there's a lot. Golly, you don't really have to go any further than TikTok or Instagram Reels and find some of these teachers talking about their jobs. There's two in particular I like to follow, and I hear stories all the time about administrative and bureaucracy type stuff that's forcing teachers completely out of the profession when we should be probably paying them more and letting them direct the learning rather than say we got to placate some test. So
The test is just part of that making them into robots thing from Carnegie. It all stems from that.
Yeah.
Because if you all think the same, you can be controlled. If you all know all the same things, I always call, like, whenever I worked for a temp agency, I always called it the cattle haul or the cattle run. Just a bunch of bodies running along together. No one's any different than the rest. You're just one of the million, not one in a million.
Yeah. And pardon me while I respond to. I've got to respond to that. Remind me to respond to that message I just got later. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But no, I don't think we're inspiring her. I think the big problem is we're not inspiring our kids enough, really.
Well, they're not participating with their kids enough. Like,
no, and that's the big issue. My mom, in spite of everything that I did, I accomplished a lot. Just being one of the smartest kids in class, but I really didn't have any back end support at home. My dad was like, when you graduate high school, go out and get a job. Period. College wasn't really talked about. My older sister Linda, she went to college. She's actually got 2 degrees, and I don't think she's doing anything with her life.
My parents, they had us working on the farm from the day we could walk, so it was never about finding work. And I'm pretty sure they only sent me to college because they didn't know what else to do, or I didn't have an option to not go.
Right.
So I just did as I told. I got my nice little BS degree. My dad thought I'd be into accounting. Not as much as he thought, and no offense, the teachers were asses. I mean, if I had a better teacher, I'd still be doing accounting to this day.
What's stopping you now from because I'm married to you. You're one of the smartest women I've ever met. What's stopping you now?
Lack of interest.
Okay, then what does interest you? Because that's where I'm going to say, I would ask these questions to anyone, especially kids, and I'm a little concerned because a friend of mine's son, I actually, when I went to go visit with them, a friend of mine's son, I asked him, what do you want to do with your life? And he told me, well, I'll just get a fast food job and I'll get a small apartment and I'll just get by. And I just looked at, I thought I was really kind of halfway picking on him, but this answer just stopped me dead in my tracks. And I'm like,
no, it's actually average for that age group.
Who beats?
In some places, that's inspiring.
No, that's never the case when I was younger with my peers. I swear to God, it wasn't. At least not amongst the my immediate circle of classmates that I had. And
well, schools do that when you're homeschooled. All they want you to do is shut up and get back to work.
I know this boy has other problems as well, but which I'm not going to get into. But I look
right now that is his that is the high school.
Let me finish. I asked him, do you not have any hopes, goals, and dreams for your life? And he couldn't give me an answer. And that's
because it's just he's sick and tired of being sick and tired and doesn't know it. You get really tired when you're a teenager at that age. You're still physically growing, and it does weigh down on your psyche if you're looking at it from an individualistic perspective. I mean, his mom's not pushing him in sports. He may not be naturally gifted. Who knows?
Oh, he's not gifted in sports. I can tell you that right now. But he does display a lot of intelligence. And
a lot of people have intelligence, but
yeah, intelligence. Well, intelligence means nothing if you have no drive to do anything with it. You'd be the smartest. I don't know. I'm living proof of that. So, you know.
But yeah, the education system is essentially self-destructing, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it is in the hands of the parents. Like, as I was trying to say before, when I was waitressing at Applebee's, I was up by Grapevine. These ladies had come down from somewhere to go swimming at Great Wolf Lodge. And I'd made a joke about her homeschooling her 15-year-old. And the look that this woman gave me, she's like, "How dare you suggest I spend time with my child?" That's basically what her response was.
What? Repeat
No
that.
joke. I mean, she loved her children, but it's like, I pay taxes for them to take them off my hands. Why would I ever want to spend time with my kids?
The school system is not designed to actually raise your children right. Let me repeat myself.
At least not with the cattle driver thing. Like, if you have too many kids in a classroom, I don't care if you have teachers' aides or whatever else.
Right.
Too many kids, there's too many kids. They get overlooked. I mean, the only reason I can say that the schools from the Renaissance age worked out is because they were so small. When you interned or did the apprenticeship, it was you and maybe three other people.
Right.
It was a direct one-on-one type relationship to your
I
learning.
don't think we should discount apprenticeships, because I think that could still be important.
I was surprised my parents didn't agree with the one that I was suggesting. They're like, no. I'm like it was with Joel Salatin. And I already knew I was already physically doing the work. So it's not like, I know I make the joke that I'm short, fat, and ugly, but short, fat, and ugly had the muscle strength of farmhand. So if I was already doing the labor, you can't tell me I can't do it because I'm already doing it.
Right.
But that is the past. This is the present.
But going back to what you said about the lady saying, "Oh, how dare you suggest I spend time with my child?" Yeah.
Basically, that's what her response was, like the shock of it all. It's like, I know you pay taxes, but you're the one that had decided to have the kid. She was one of those people that probably didn't get pregnant until after she was married. No, she clearly, her husband was of well enough means. It wasn't a marriage of convenience because somebody got knocked up. Versus, I mean, there's a big difference between oops babies and we're planning everything. It's like,
I don't really have a response for that. If you're a parent out here and you think that the teacher should be teaching your
nanny and everything else for you because you pay taxes.
Yeah, just because you pay taxes doesn't make the teacher your slave, your nanny, or whatever else. And they got other kids that they got to deal with, and the system's not outside of the system being designed to handle that. Why ain't you taking personal responsibility? You had the kid. And this is something I feel pretty strongly about. If you're not going to take care of your kids, why have them? Go ahead, sign them away. You don't deserve to be a parent. That's pretty much why I'm not a parent. I've questioned my ability to be able to take that on, and at least I'm responsible enough to do it. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to other parents just take a this type of attitude towards everybody else should raise my kid, or this I takes a village. No, it takes you first. Bite me otherwise.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You were saying?
I don't know. You were talking and then it was black.
Yeah, I know. We have a technical glitch over here, so I want to apologize to our audience members on that. I can't figure it out.
I think just the internet, but yeah, people, they should raise their own freaking kids. You birth them, you take care of them. If you can't, or oh, there we go.
Yep.
But yeah, also it goes back to people not have been trained out of taking personal responsibility, whether it's taking personal responsibility in learning or just personal responsibility for anything in life, period. if anyone is truly interested in improving their ability to learn, there are several books out there that I can suggest. One of them being, if anyone remembers, Josh Waitzkin, who was the youngest chess master in history. So he goes, he wins, he does his thing, and then he goes and gets into judo. I want to say, because I don't think it was jujitsu. It wasn't the. It wasn't like the wrestling style. I think it was judo. And so he starts learning that, and then he analyzes his process of learning through this because he said he's already a chess master. He's already geek among all. He's a king of geeks, but he does this physical thing. He ended up, I believe, becoming for 2 years in a row like judo champion of the world, and the Asian community was not happy about it because they kind of like if Asian people kind of win an Asian sport, but yeah. And then he wrote a book called The Art of Learning, where you can self reflect and analyze more proficiently to truly accelerate your learning process. And it really doesn't matter what it is. He went from like all brainiac things to completely physical thing and rocked it. And I know somewhere in that time period too, he went to school for philosophy. So who knows what he's doing now? I haven't checked with him in a while.
Let's see. No, I pulled up his Wikipedia page. I gotta.
It's been long ago enough. It should be updated with at least one new thing. Got married, had kids. Why? Start a charity. Everyone starts charities nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. Just go. Okay. Well, I can post that in the comments or wherever. But yeah. Let's see. Martial arts. Blah 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 blah.
Was it judo? Was I right, or was it regular karate?
Hold on.
I know it wasn't the Gracie method of jiu-jitsu.
Tai Chi.
Tai Chi. Okay.
Yeah. And he's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
He must have added that after the fact.
Yeah. Well, one leads to another sometimes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, his book has been out long enough to where you can probably get it for like $6 free shipping on eBay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, I got distracted. I was just reading. I'm just like, you know what? I like people like him. I like people with that desire. Okay. I don't know.
Not many people left who have that desire, who haven't had public education beat it out of them.
Well, there's also this ongoing societal thing about hating success. So, out of 100 people, I know one of them's going to be really kind of the alpha successful. And I don't really like to use that term, but he's going to be better than everybody else, and everybody else is going to hate him.
Well, they're better, but also.
And we don't do enough in public education. You see, nothing would make a teacher's day if all of her students made A's. I promise you. But now
it just means you have a really good computer.
Yeah. No,
put information in.
I was in that straight A category. I know, but I
grade my own tests. I know exactly how good I was.
That's funny. That's funny.
Seriously, Mom was too tired at the time.
Right. Oh, just grade your own test. Well, that's a problem with homeschooling. I'm not familiar with homeschooling curriculum.
I'm really whatever the heck they want.
Yeah, I know.
It could be Brainwash Central. It could be as
well. I've listened to some of your mom's stories where she's taken you and your siblings on trips. I think she took one of your sisters to the state capitol in New Hampshire when they were, I don't know, talking about something.
She was protesting.
Yeah.
She was checking on our 2A right. Like when it comes to protesting and being semi-politically active, when we were kids, for some odd reason, I don't know who the heck was George Bush Sr.'s campaign manager, but we lived near one of the smallest podunk airports, like 3 runways, and they were meant for prop planes, right? They had George Bush land there, and she took us to see it.
Oh, wow.
You know, he said some nice stuff and then left, and there was like 3 high school marching bands out there in the heat.
Right.
It was one of the hottest days of the year. People were like trying not to pass out. Like, who the hell planned this? Like, even the hangar wasn't that big. It was meant for like prop plane style stuff. So when I say airport, we're not talking like the big ones, which it should have been at, like near Trenton.
That took some planning.
Some
All right.
misplanning, yeah.
So on Josh Whiteskin's Wikipedia page, there was a link down at the bottom to the Art of Learning project. And
Did he expand upon it?
yeah,
I know he was born and bred New Yorker.
yeah. The let's see. He is part of his foundation. The JW Foundation works with.
Foundation. Everyone's having charities nowadays.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. It's probably the best way to get everything funded. I'm not going to sit here and lie about it. Otherwise, we're subject to all sorts of IRS taxes, regulations, whatever. And you know what? I really think the government should just take a step back and let the people who know what they're doing do it.
Yeah,
and if
once
this
that
is
happened.
the case, then I'm going to support it.
So what's he doing now with his charity in New York City?
All right. So, yeah, currently the JW Foundation works with public and private school systems, urban youth centers, gifted organizations, teacher administrator groups, parent groups, educational organizations, and athletic teams and organizations. Oh, all inclusive. Cool.
It says he's bringing
He says it is my ambition to support all children, teens, and young adults on their unique paths to excellence. And that's a good point right there, because everybody's path is unique. Some of us
are self-reflection, yeah.
Yeah, some of us are more, it's like some of us are more technically able, like myself, and then others are more, audio, visual, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I get that, because you need a balance of everything.
I think we do have that book somewhere still in the house.
Right. So if anybody wants to know about that one, it's theartoflearningproject.org. Again, that's theartoflearningproject.org.
And we're not sponsored. We weren't asked to sponsor the book. We're just being nice people by mentioning good things.
Yeah. Develop an art of learning program. That's exactly what it is. What does it look like? It's a thematic program. Okay. Copies of the art of learning. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I probably need to check it out for a future episode on this.
Yeah, there's just so much, like, I still have this old idea that I've had ever since high school, is that if the internet gets big enough, I mean, other than maybe some colleges for like medical degrees and stuff,
right?
We really need public school. There's enough, like there's a PragerU they had some lady on their show or whatever. She was from California and she didn't like some of the woke ideology that was going through. She was a lady of color. She moves to Florida and starts an education company where if you're not happy with your kid's public school education, you can sign up for her classes and you can like actually teach your kid versus not. It's, if they're better with computer learning. Or when I first came to Texas, I don't know how or why I saw this, but it's like you can go to a Houston high school via the internet. Yeah, they're trying to.
There's that private, I think it's a K through 12 academy. I see it. It's on I-30 over there on the east side of Fort Worth. And because there are alternatives in this area for.
Well, that's just one of them. To where this one claimed to be in Houston, to where you could go through all 4 years of high school online through this Houston school, and they were advertising, I guess, trying to get more money or whatever for their school. And then there's another high school alternative where in Haltom, it's near the actual high school, but it's outside of it. Because on the backside there's like businesses and stuff, but If your teen doesn't like going to school, you can send them to this building. They can go to high school online. They get done twice as fast because they don't have to worry about study hall and other stupid shit that drives them nuts. And then they can get their GED or full diploma.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is self-driven, and just seeing the lack of stress in the kid's face for more than like whenever they talk about it, it's like, yeah, I don't go to stupid school anymore. I'm doing good now. I can, basically have their work-life balance like they've always knew it should be, and they're not being distracted or stressed out by the public school environment.
Right.
It's like, good for you, kid. Or
See, I wish something like that had been around when I was in school, because I could have really probably left.
You would have checked out early.
I would have checked out early. I wanted to check out early anyway. I really felt like in the 9th grade I was
It was
ready.
a distraction from work for me. It was just there. I wanted to prove I wasn't dumb. That was the only reason I did it. And hopes and dreams are for other people.
But if you want to get on the topic of education, you should talk to my brother Joe, who, well, mom and dad took us out of public school finally,
Mm-hmm.
put us in a private academy, which was literally just a one-room schoolhouse, 4 hours a day, self-directed learning. I got kicked out of there and ended up back in the public schools, and Joe stayed, but none of his education counted for anything after that point. The state came and ripped the accreditation out of the school and shut the school down. And it was supposedly a revered institution, but I think this was really probably one of the worst things I've ever seen as far as an example of quality education in my life.
It's as good as all that.
Yeah. And
if
I could ever get him to talk about it publicly, then I would love for people to hear that. And
no, listen to this. My parents insisted that I go to college because not going was not an option. He
cut out.
Okay. Dad flew us down to Florida to look at a college that was extra cheap for out-of-state people because they had a homeschool curriculum producing company that subsidized and made college cheaper. It was mostly meant for like super, super Christian, goody two-shoes people. Girls only went there to get their MRS degree, if you know what that means, or they all thought they had to become missionaries and go to Africa. And Africa supposedly was the only heathen nation left on earth, according to them.
Right.
They were psycho. And Dad was still very insistent on the idea that I go into accounting. Very early on, I figured out that their accounting program was non-accredited. You can't get your CPA. Now, you can't go for the test if you don't have an accredited education.
Right.
So I asked my dad, what are you expecting to do? Get my accounting degree twice? So you can say you gave me a cheap education? Or become like his aunt? She's a tax preparer, and you can take a state test that just proves that you know what you're talking about and go like the backdoor route to it. I'm like, no, not really. I mean, I like taxes. I don't love taxes. I don't want to live someone else's life that they've already lived. And my own ideas were suggestions to the narrative, to put it nicely. So when we got back, my mom was all smiley-eyed and she's like, so how was the trip? What'd you think of the school? I'm like, I and none of my sisters are going to that Nazi Christian school ever, and I'm not getting an education that isn't worth anything. I'm going to spend 4 freaking years getting it. Yeah, you wonder where my hopes and
I've
dreams
I've
went.
I've heard some of the rules at some of these Christian universities. I had a boss that went to Harding University, a prominent Church of Christ institution in Arkansas, and some of the rules there were, I thought, well, okay, well, the
Do you
10%
want to go to chapel 5 times a day and get demerits if you don't show up to every single one of them?
5 times a day. I don't think it was that bad over there at Harding.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know anything about Harding really. I haven't been there.
Well, no, not Harding, but the school we looked at. I'm not saying its name because, some other kid might want to go there. It's like, good luck. Or, let's see what else. Well, some crazy thing about education. My parents, they thought they were being helpful, but it really wasn't
Right.
helpful.
No,
Most people just said take the test.
was it the definition of be in the world but not of the world? But you got to be a separatist.
Yeah,
Okay.
extremely so.
Uh,
Like you're hiding in plain sight. You gotta stay inside your snow globe in case the devil with his minions for the Antichrist shows up. You can't have dreams if the world's gonna end every single year.
you know, got to live every day like it's your last. So prep like there's no other. Get your survival food ready. Hey, Jim Baker, Jim Baker's selling that survival food on his show now. Okay,
A lot of people are actually.
he was the one that got my attention the most. He
For
was
what?
for the survival food. The survival buckets of food.
Oh, let's see. Tim Pool's advertised it. And Valuetainment has advertised it. Joe Rogan's advertised it. Glenn Beck has advertised it. If you even have a whiff of anything Republican leaning or just what I call common sense, logical podcast radio type stuff, all of them at one point or another have pushed these survival kits.
Mm-hmm.
Or when I was still working as a security guard, one of the guys is ex-military, like hardcore military, and he liked to show off. Like, I mean, I've never seen a guy with an ego that needed to be stroked this often, especially in a professional environment. He's like, yeah, if the world ever ends, I got friends down in Nicaragua that have a compound where we can hide out. And on my way out of town, the first place I'm stopping is the Walmart distribution center. Just steal whatever I want and then leave.
Good luck getting past security.
Well, there wouldn't be any security because the world would be ending.
I don't know about Walmart.
That was his choice. On his way out of town, just find the biggest distribution plant, steal all whatever they had in storage, because the hunting I used to work in the sporting goods department. There's a lot of stuff you'd want in there that you wouldn't think that you'd want.
Yeah.
Even if it's just icy hot packets for wherever you're headed into, or coolers, or fishing rods and reels and survival stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, back to education. As far as the tree hugging hippie side of homeschool, they really don't have a goal other than to give you just enough to survive on whatever happens.
No, let me stop you right there. I've never seen the tree hugging hippie homeschool. I have seen the.
Well, they're the ones where you're lucky if the kids grow up knowing how to read because they're so busy bonding with nature.
Okay, I haven't seen those, but I have seen more.
Well, this is the only time that
that don't want their children's mind polluted by the heathens in the public school.
No, this is the only time that I support public testing. So most of the time, it is just to make sure everyone is the same computer. But if you can prove that the parents are making sure their kids can't read and write because they're doing other things that are, I don't know, they consider their hippiness religious. If it's religious, it's not everyday useful. Now, I don't want to tell people how to raise their kids or live their lives, but if they got problems knowing their multiplication tables, adding, subtracting, and just basic walking around knowledge,
yeah,
checking on that may not be a bad idea. Now, they have the right to make their kids as dumb as they want. But I mean, who knows? I mean, is it more worth it to teach a kid how to find mushrooms in the forest versus, chemistry? If
Mm.
you're convinced that the world is ending and that's how you have to live.
Is this more like survivalist training, or let's go
Oh, they
back?
don't see it that way. No, no, no. Wrong verbiage. Wrong verbiage. You are survivalist, period, with no goal other than not dying as fast.
Is this like to the back to the land movements of the 60s that you're talking about?
Sort of, but they usually back it up with you're hiding from the government in plain sight. Like, it's not quite as bad as getting rid of your social security number, but it's close.
Yeah, that actually started in the 1920s and 30s. Back to the land movement. And I know that it was pretty popular in the 60s. There were a lot of them in the 60s and 70s that.
Well, I always said my parents were like, I knew dad smoked pot. I don't think mom was really into it, but they were very, okay. This is how I always describe it, and you always seem to forget. Okay. They're like Amish hippies, but they take all the worst parts about being Amish and all the worst parts about being hippie, and then they add it together.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me. No.
Why do you think I live in Texas? Why do you think I'm finding real happiness and joy and not living up there where everyone has to have 3 jobs because no one wants to pay benefits because they're all broke? Or, okay, you know how the pandemic shut down international travel?
Yeah.
Talk about kids and education. Every single year, the whole entire area, especially around Laconia, and you've been to Laconia, right?
Yeah,
It's
we've
like
been through there. You've
yeah,
taken.
well, that Dunkin' Donuts, the camps, everywhere. They bring in kids from like Turkey, uh, Puerto Rico to take all these local jobs. So they're basically funding the money. They're funneling any potential money that could be local out of the country, and that is the economic state of New Hampshire. So even if you are a low-level grunt, your job can be outsourced for at least the summer. And those poor
I
kids
don't
who
remember seeing that at Dairy Queen though.
it was the wrong time of year.
Okay.
No, it's only summertime.
All right.
Whenever they make the most amount of money for the state, they ship in labor
Mm-hmm.
versus like giving it to local people who are already here, who can't be deported. If they complain about there were a lot of really substantial rumors about being paid less than minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what their parents did. Like, we keep our kids dumb and unemployed while other countries send their kids here to make them smart, educated, and improve their English.
Right.
So, which parents are trying harder to do right by their kids?
Good question. That's a good question.
I know people always want to make education about money or teachers or unions or the government or whichever else.
Mm-hmm.
If that all disappeared tomorrow, would you as an individual be able to learn, feed yourself, provide for yourself, make shelter for yourself and or others, and hunt, get, or procure food of some kind? Whether I don't care if it's canned soup, you procured it.
I don't think that would be possible for some of these people.
Well, this also goes back to the old home. I call it a homeschool joke, but it might be a farm joke where, or it's not. We're very sarcastic in my family, so we always have to name the title of what kind of joke it is when we're intentionally insulting anyone who's not us. To where you got the public school kids who think the eggs come from a carton, which technically they are in a carton, but that's not really what that question means. Or like they only think your meat comes in those styrofoam things with the plastic wrap.
Oh, you mean, the girl who says hunting should be illegal because we can get meat at the store. No animals were killed in the process.
But with organized farming, you kill less animals because it's like scheduled. You're only raising things that are supposed to be food versus all the ones you're saving that will never be food.
Right.
Or like make sure that the breed or the animal survives longer for future growth and benefit. So in some ways it's protected.
Hmm.
Cows should be more protected, especially if they're trying to make us all eat bugs.
I don't have a response to that one.
Seriously. It's like you never, when you truly are farming, you don't kill your stock. You have your studs, you have your males and your females, and you're constantly improving the desired product of what you're breeding for
Right.
future food or just general health of the animal. Like if there's a weird genetic strain that makes them like have coughs or their ears are crooked or something, don't do that again or breed it out of them. Those are
Hmm.
the ones you put for food, and then the rest of them, you keep for quality, therefore preserving the breed or the animal species even longer.
Right.
And that's also critical thinking that most kids don't have nowadays because they're taught to be robots. And cell phones don't help any.
No, cell phones just pretty much give people, the eternal babysitter of the iPad babysitter. Uh, Stick your child in front of a screen. It started with TV. Oh my gosh, we'll let the TV raise our kids. They can watch cartoons. I'll be out of my hair or whatever. You're not, you're just passing a buck on something else. And by God, if when my parents were really tough with me when it came to stuff. I said I was bored. They'd find something to do.
Oh yeah, we were scared to death of having them think for a single moment that we were bored. Boredom was a death sentence to work.
Hmm.
That's why I started knitting and crocheting, because at least if it looked like I was doing something, I'd be left the hell alone.
Right.
Like, see, I'm busy. Go away.
Hmm.
No, I don't want to wash more dishes. No, I don't want to sweep the floor. No, I don't want to wash windows. No, I don't want to dust. No, I don't want to bring in more firewood.
So what was it like living in that log cabin in New Hampshire?
There was no log cabin. It was a 14-bedroom farmhouse. It used to be a hotel for loggers.
I'm picking on you. I'm picking on you.
No, it was 10 times bigger
To our
than
viewers out there, I've picked on her a lot about growing up Amish
I
and
told you it was almost the worst parts about being Amish. But we were allowed to wear buttons. That was the hippie part coming in. We were not brainwashed to believe that the devil would hold on to our buttons, and buttons were a source of vanity.
I still don't get that one. If anybody
Ask the
wants,
Amish.
if anybody wants to contribute and comment on that, then please do. I'll entertain your thoughts on this. But we
Well, if
were
you
not.
want to know the full history of learning about that, there's a difference between like hardcore Amish and then like Mennonite, which is Amish light.
Oh, I'm very much familiar with the Mennonite people, and I've read all their good websites. They're
Hey, their farm stores are rocking.
Oh yeah, no kidding. There was a Mennonite family that lived down the road from my grandmother, and they did after she died. They did a lot for us as a family, and I'm eternally grateful for that. So, um, apparently, they were friends with my grandma. I'm seriously friends with my grandma. Nobody knew this. They just like, they like, everybody liked to pick on the Mennonites because they looked and dressed like the Amish, And
But they still had cars, and I think they have a house phone. I don't
or
know if
the
they have.
Amish with VCRs, as I've heard one time, but um, they have,
Like
they
these
did.
cars, but they don't have TV. Because at least if it's pre-screened, it's allowed, and there's no commercials.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the full extent of that one, but I know that I've been on the Mennonite website, many of the Mennonite organizations' websites, many times to do some reading and stuff, and they do value higher education. So
Well,
I can appreciate
that's
that.
subjective because based on the Amish level, higher education means anything higher than middle school, which means they believe in sending their kids to high school. And after high school, a lot of the girls get married, or at least have some type
I
of
just pulled up a list of universities and colleges affiliated with the Mennonite Church. Quite a few of them.
Yeah, what are they teaching them?
I don't know.
Dairy management.
The only one I know of personally is Bethel College in Kansas, and I didn't know they were. So
They're probably mostly farm based. Where there, I mean, there is a lot of good knowledge in like organic chemistry and stuff. Or if you're into like, I know they don't have wineries, but if you need to know like the particulars for farming and the microbial content of your soil and stuff, that can be useful. Or how to keep healthier. Seriously, cows are gonna get really sick in the dairy community, so knowing how to keep that kidney.
This Mennonite affiliated college at Bethel College in Kansas looks more like a normal college or university.
Like what
Um,
kind
well, they have a football team.
touch football or real football?
Real football. It's pretty much, this is how I know about them. As a matter of fact, I don't know. I gotta. What we got? About. Yep, they're no different than any other college university out there, but they are apparently affiliated with the Amish and Mennonites. So
Will they pray before every class? Is that the only difference?
I don't know. I really don't
These
know.
are very subtle
I'm
differences.
I'm not going to offer an opinion here. I'm just like, well, I didn't know they were. They do have. There's an Eastern Mennonite Seminary. There where they in Virginia. Eastern Mennonite University, Pennsylvania.
Farmland over there.
Yep. Tabor College in Kansas is one of them. As a private Mennonite liberal arts college in Hillsboro, Kansas. And
The classes they offer are.
I don't really want to go into, I don't really want to go into that, but okay, let's see what they got. Let me go to their website. While we're picking on these things, this looks like a modern campus.
Yeah, modern subjective.
Undergraduate.
They are buildings and very nice barns.
Academic programs. Let's see all the academic programs. We got. Which category do you want to go? Because they do have a separate category for Bible, religion, and philosophy.
We skip religion. We already know they got that.
Okay. Science and mathematics, social and behavioral science, teacher education, music, history, health and human performance, communications, English, criminal justice, business, Bible, religion, and philosophy, art, and design. So under business category, which is pretty much where everybody had tried to get me to, go into, get yourself a business degree.
In common sense.
Yeah. Why business at Tabor? Career opportunities, accountant, auditing, banking, sales, advertising, market research, organizational, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's not truly Amish then.
No, they're not. The Mennonites have never been truly Amish. And as a matter of fact, these students don't look any different than your run-of-the-mill worldly students that you see on the street every day.
No, trust me. If you get them talking, I
know you'll figure it out.
There's always a glitch. There's always a glitch somewhere. Like I said, when we went to that college in Florida, they all seriously thought that Africa was the only country that still needed Jesus. And they all had to go there and convert everyone. It's like, how'd your parents brainwash you? Maybe it's the kind of college where the girls are only going there to get their MRS degree.
I was up near Muncie, Indiana one time, or Marion, Indiana. I was around that. They're around the same area there. I had parked somewhere, and I was near a Starbucks, and it was close to Indiana Wesleyan University, which is a Christian university. And that's a modern campus too.
Newness doesn't count. It's all about the brainwash.
I don't know.
They're all really good at building buildings. Always. It's one of the few things that's good about them.
But in order to, their on-campus programs, let's see, view all programs. They offer associates. They offer associate, bachelor's, and master's degrees, and a lot of certificates as well.
Are they accredited though?
Yeah, of course they are.
No, is there proof of that? Because it wasn't until I finally got the truth out of people, found out that the greatest college in the world was not accredited for what I needed them to be.
Well, that's something else we could.
Took some crowbarring to get the information out of them. It's like, yeah, I always want to waste 4 years of my life for no obvious reason.
Indiana Wesleyan University is accredited by the Higher Learning Commission and is a member of the North Central Association of Colleges and Schools.
Someone want to explain to me, like, you know how they have those little tech schools where you can get like certifications to be like a phlebotomist?
Yeah.
Because I don't have a government issued high school diploma, they completely ignore my BS degree to where I have to get my GED if I wanted to go back and study to be a phlebotomist.
That should be easy for you.
I think it's bullshit.
I know it's BS, but you know what? No, I know it's BS, but you do what you have to do sometimes.
No, consider it a sign from God and move on.
Do you really want to be a phlebotomist, or do you want to be something else in life? If it was something greater than that, would you go back and get your GED for it?
Not at this point in time. College education, it's so watered down and overpriced. No, I'd have to go back to when I was 21 before I'd even.
Or what about something technical like coding or whatever? Because it's something I've considered to just.
No. Nope. At this point in time, people are going to have to take me the way that I am because I have enough education in real life.
Yeah. A lot of us do.
I'm not good enough by now with the amount of education I have. I'm not sure I'm the problem anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, how about we wrap things up?
But yes, the history of learning, education, and its potential downfalls, and an honest perspective.
All right, I'm going to present a final thought. If based on the way things are going right now, the best advice I can impart to anyone is, if you're serious about your own learning, focus on that and inspire others. If you're a parent, inspire your children to do better than you did.
And be specific. Be very specific.
And don't beat them over the head.
Try things.
Yeah, don't beat them over the head. Don't force your child to be an engineer when he's clearly meant to be something else.
Oh, I met one kid not that long ago driving around where he is diehard. He wants to be in the construction industry so bad, and his father wants him to take over his business in computer programming. The kid's a jock straight up. You could just tell he's very physical in his learning, and I'm not sure if daddy would respect that or not. So
somebody's got to build the houses.
Yeah, I mean, he picked a good industry that will always be necessary.
Yeah.
And you do have to be smart about it. Make sure the walls aren't bowed.
Right. All right. Well,
So,
on behalf of everybody here at Biggin USA, I am Bill Bourbon. This is Sassy Biggins, and thank you, love you all, and goodbye.
have you?